Hey there, I'm Amy Connell. Welcome to Graced Health, the podcast for women who want simple and grace-filled ways to take care of themselves. I'm a certified personal trainer and nutrition coach who wants you to know your eating, movement, and body don't have to be perfect. You just need to be able to do what you're called to do. Okay, show of hands here, even though I can't see your hands. Has this ever happened to you? You are pulling groceries in from the car, just doing what you're always doing, right? Trying to make it as many trips or as few trips as possible, and your back totally spasms up. Maybe you have reached into the back seat from your driver's seat, and then you feel like a knife just shot through your chest, or maybe your back as well. Maybe you've just been standing in line, just minding your own business, not thinking about anything. Someone calls your name, and when you turn, you get a searing pain through the front of your hips. Maybe it's even your hip flexor. This happens. Versions of that have happened to me in the past. So if you're like, yes, that's happened to me, you're not alone. You are not alone. I am not shaking my finger at you if this has happened to you, but I do want to give you some resources and some movements to prevent stuff like that. And let's just be real here, because, I like to be real. This didn't happen when we were 20. This didn't happen when we were 13. This happens now that we're getting older even more. I hear it from clients all the time. I hear it from just more seasoned people all the time. I mean, like, you're just going along doing your thing, and then all of a sudden there's just like this tweak. There's a spasm. There's something. And there's a reason for that. So that's what I want to talk about today. As you know, we have been talking in this entire season about the different ways we want to move as we get older. And we are finishing out this season with transverse exercises and transverse movements. I'm going to be giving you some of those. So first of all, you're probably like, what are transverse exercises? I did a super low key, not low key in the way that the kids say it, but like a low, like just a anecdotal survey, and said, hey, who knows what transverse exercises are? And I didn't get a whole lot of people saying, yeah, I'm familiar with that. So I want to go over a little bit what transverse exercises and what your transverse plane is. So to back up just a little bit, our body has three different planes of motion: sagittal, frontal, and transverse. So your sagittal plane these are all imaginary lines, obviously, but it's an imaginary line that runs through the middle of your body and divides your body into left and right. This is the one that a lot of exercises use, or they take place in this sagittal plane. So maybe it's squats or deadlifts or rows or chest presses or pull-ups, something where everything is kind of equal on both sides. If we think about our daily activities, this is also where we spend a lot of time. So like all the walking that we do, whether it is for exercising or just going from point A to point B, that's in the sagittal plane. So is sitting, that's in the sagittal plane. So everything's kind of doing the same thing all at once. Now, the frontal plane is an imaginary line that goes through the middle of the body sideways. So it's kind of like if you were just standing there and it went through your head, through your shoulders, through your hips, and it divides your body from the front to the back, which is also called the anterior, which is the front, and the posterior, which is the back. So lateral movements take place in this plane. So if you are ever doing like side lunges and then you come back to standing, that is a frontal plane. If you ever do like arm raises or lateral raises or side shuffles, that is all frontal plane as well. Then you have the transverse plane. This is what divides your body into top and bottom. So it kind of runs perpendicular to frontal and sagittal. It's like if you were to take, I'm thinking of like old magic shows where they would like put something in between the waist, or, like through the waist, which it wasn't really through the waist. I don't know how they did that, but anyway, that is your transverse plane. So that is when you are doing any kind of rotational movement, rotational exercises. These are exercises that also have like accessory movements, they call them, that work your glutes and your abdominal muscles, because you have to be able to stabilize yourself and balance yourself when you are twisting side to side. So these transverse exercises are often rotational. They're not always, but they take one side of your body to the other side. Now, why is this important to do as you get older? Well, there are maybe more, but I have three main reasons that I want to talk about today. Number one is often when we are taking one side of the body and going to the other, we're also utilizing and strengthening our transverse abdominals. Those are muscles that go along the side of your abdomen, of your core. Those also help with stability and balance. Now, as we discussed in episode 1 of this series, which was all focused on balance, balance is one of those things that naturally declines with age. We see age-related declines in the inner ear, in your visual system, in your musculoskeletal system, central nervous system, orthopedic issues, cognitive impairments. We're just deteriorating. Gosh, this is depressing. This is so depressing. But we're fighting this because we're working on all these things, right? But anyway, if you haven't listened to the balance episode, go back and tune in for some really applicable ways to focus on your balance. But when you are in these rotational areas, you're activating a lot of those systems and you're having to think a little bit more. We don't have to think about walking, but we do have to think about if we're reaching across to the side or if we're in a plank, and I'll talk some about this later, and we bring one knee to the opposite elbow. Those require just a little bit more cognitive engagement. And so that will help strengthen our balance and our stability. Another reason that transverse exercises are so important when we age is when we repeatedly move in the same direction. So this is that sagittal plane we talked about just a second ago, when we're walking, when we're biking, when we're sitting, when we're running, all that kind of stuff. Our muscles become overused. When they become overused, they often get really tight. And when they get tight, they can restrict your ability to move properly while recruiting all the other right muscles. So we've talked some about this in this series, and I've had other conversations with it, but basically we have so many muscles that all have to be recruited and to work together. When one of them is tight, that actually causes the antagonist or the opposite muscle to not work as well. So for example, a real commonly known muscle pairing is your biceps and your triceps. And if your triceps are overused and tight, if you've been, maybe pushing something a lot or done something, and then you go to flex your bicep muscle, but those triceps are really tight, that is called an altered reciprocal inhibition, which I know is too much of a fancy word. Well, for me, for one, but I know the concept of it, but also probably more than you want. But what you need to know is those muscles are not going to work together in the way that they were designed to work together. So that's number 2. Basically moving in the same direction just kind of causes this snowball effect and will eventually cause injury, which seems to be a theme in everything that I ever talk about, but that's what holds us back. We just don't want to get injured, because that is when it's not just 2 steps back. Sometimes it's multiple steps back. And then finally, the third reason why it is so important to do transverse exercises and move in that transverse plane as we get older is because of our connective tissue. Now, our connective tissue is basically goes from all the way from the top of our head all the way down. I just had an amazing guest interview that will be airing this fall. Her name is Sue Hitzman, and I tell you what, she brings the house in educating us about connective tissue. So I can't wait for you to hear that. But in general, our connective tissue is tissue that it supports, it protects, it gives structure to other tissues and organs in the body. It also stores fat. It helps move nutrients and other substances between tissues and organs. It helps repair damaged tissue. It's made up of cells, fibers, and kind of like a gel-like substance. So I will leave the full education on this from when Sue comes in. P.S. Those of you who are interested in gut health, really important to keep hydrated connective tissue. She talked about this. It blew my mind. Okay, I'm getting way, way too ahead of myself. Anyway, our connective tissue can lose the ability to effectively store and release the mechanical energy over the course of the normal biological aging process. That's a mouthful. I know. Basically, failure to train in different directions prohibits your muscle, your fascia, your connective tissues from remaining pliable, kind of able to move easily in lots of different directions, and elastic, which is kind of the same thing. And this allows your joints to move in their full capacity. So when we can't move our joints in their full range of motion, you guessed it, injury. This is just a recurring theme. I know. And I'm not talking like, it's not just the crazy gym workouts that cause the injury. It's the things like we talked about at the very beginning of this episode. It is bringing in the groceries. It's picking up little kids. It's even getting out of the car or maybe even out of bed in the morning. I mean, this is for all the people who have ever tweaked the back and thought, I wasn't doing anything. I was just fill in the blank. Chances are it was connective tissue related. And we haven't talked much about it. So make sure that you tune in this fall when Sue Hitzman comes on talking about fascia and connective tissue. But right now, what I want you to know is it's important to move your body in a lot of different directions, including that transverse plane, in order to help promote healthy connective tissue. So if you're thinking, okay, well, so how do I do this? How do I incorporate one more thing into my workouts? Well, believe it or not, I can make things a little bit more simple for you. I have lots of different suggestions and ideas, and I just kind of want to get your wheels turning in terms of how you like to move, how you do things on a normal basis. And maybe this will give you some good ideas to increase or to incorporate transverse movements into your day. So here's just a couple ideas. So remember last week's episode when we talked about walking lunges as a dynamic workout or a dynamic warm-up with a rotational twist? Yes, that absolutely is a type of stretching. It's that dynamic stretching, but it also moves across the transverse plane because you are adding that rotation. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. I have shared before that this is one of my favorite go-to warm-up movements whenever I'm doing a track workout or I'm doing some sprinting, because I know what I'm going to be doing and I want to be able to move just a little differently to prep my body. Another thing you can do is if you are sitting a while, stand up and move just balance on one leg. So bonus balance work, and then take your knee and just make a big circle and then go back and go the other way. So again, we're getting that femur, your thigh bone, in its full range of motion in your hip joint. So going up and around and just getting that full range of motion. We often will take it front and back and front and back and front and back when we're walking, running, biking, sitting, that kind of thing. But we want to move that femur in a lot of different directions. Another thing you can do is just add some upper body rotations to your planks. So maybe do a T-stand. Maybe if you are in a plank position, you can take your right hand and reach it over to your left, past your left and then back and then do the other thing. Sometimes in my classes, we'll do sandbells. You can also use just weights or anything else where we'll grab it and then pull it over to the other side. And then we'll reach under and grab that sandbell and go to the other side. You can also do something new, like go to a kickboxing or a boxing class. Boy, I tell you what, there's lots of range of motion in these workouts. Another type of class you can try or do if you don't already is yoga. That incorporates, and we talked some about yoga last week and the lengthening and the stretching, but I tell you what, we utilize a lot of transverse movements in yoga as well. Another thing you can do is do the mobility workout that accompanied my book, Your Worthy Body. So in my book, Your Worthy Body, I provide a free resource library of all kinds of things, workouts, movements, recipes, journals, more. There's a QR code in the book. It will take you to an online library. You can sign up. It is all free in there. And in there, I have a mobility workout. Now, this is also listed in the book, so you can just do what's listed in the book. But if you're like, I don't know what that means, go do the videos and you can at least kind of get used to what some of those movements are. So mobility is a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. And speaking of mobility, one of my favorite transverse movements in mobility is to sit on the ground, bend your knees and put your feet on the ground, and you're going to want them wider than your hip. Take your hands back behind your hips, so you've got a little bit of room to work, and drop both knees over to one side. So when both knees are over to one side, you're going to end up with your foot and then your shin and then the other foot, and I want them all in a line. So your knees aren't kind of going wonky. One of them's going to be back a little bit, but that inner leg, if that makes sense, will go all in one line from your foot to your shin to your foot. And if that doesn't make sense, I will be on my Grace to Health community Facebook group tomorrow demonstrating what I'm talking about, just so you can get a feel for that. But go back and forth those that way. Those are often called like 90-90s. And that's a really great way to get some nice, gentle transverse movement in. And then finally, of course, if you've been listening, you know what I'm going to say. You can get your copy of my online on-demand class called Be Complete. So this is a comprehensive workout. It's about 40-ish minutes to help you age with confidence and grace and injury-free, hopefully. And it covers all of the elements that we've talked about this season. So in this one workout, in this one class, you are strengthening your balance, your core, your mini muscles. And then we also talked about pausing and getting the mind aspect of it in there. We work on lengthening or stretching. And then, of course, we also use transverse exercises in this. So if you are listening to this episode today, on the day it's released, which is Tuesday, July 19th, 2022, you still have time to go get $10 off the $20 rate for this. So you can get this whole thing for $10. It is, do it as many times as you want, whenever you want. You are in control. But you go to gracedhealth.com/presale to sign up. You can go ahead and purchase it, or you can put your name in there and I will email you next Tuesday, July 26th, when it's available, and I'll give you a discount code. So it's your choice, but if you're like me and you just want to go ahead and take care of things, then just go ahead and purchase it now, because it's $10. I promise you, it is so much value at $20, and the $10 is even greater value. It's just incredible. So go to gracedhealth.com/presale. Now, if you're listening to this after July 19th, you can go to gracedhealth.com/B, the letter B, dash complete, COMPLETE, and you will still get an incredible value, but you will pay full price for it, which is $20. So this is available July 26th, whether or not you get it on July 26th or you go ahead and do the pre-sale. It is, it will all be out on July 26th, and I cannot wait for you to get it. My challenge to you after today is see how you can add in some rotations to your workout. And if you still are like, I don't know where to start, do this. This is like the super simple way of adding some rotations. Stand with your feet hip width apart and rotate side to side. But really, you can also do like those hip circles while you're standing. You can do them while you're kneeling. It's easy, and you can work them into your workouts, into warm-ups, into cool downs, anything, but just get your body moving in all planes of motion. Okay, that is all for today. Go out there and have a grace day.